Firstly, I'm just going to thank you once again for coming to SGInnovate, and today's event is really interesting. So all of us are super excited for this event because, it's about internship, job opportunities in data science, and, sometimes it's very hard to get internship positions, job positions, and I'm an intern myself here, so I understand where, everyone is coming from in this area. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you guys the panelists for today. So first we have Kwan, who is the VP of Data Science at Lazada. And then we have Veronica, who is the Deputy Director of the Talent Networking Team at SGInnovate. We have Bryan, who is the Data Scientist at Lazada. We have Xia Rui, who is a student at NUS, and Zhen, who's also a student at NUS. So without further ado, I'll pass the time to Mike, and he'll moderate away. Yeah, thank you.
Who's ready? Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, one more time. Who's ready? Yeah. Okay, one more time. Who's ready? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let's maybe start with something very simple. If guys, you don't mind just introducing yourself a little bit more. 1 minute, literally just tell what you do, kind of to give people a better understanding what you do, what's your experience with data science. Literally elevator speech. Very quick. Kwan, do you want to start and we're just going to move? Yeah. 1, 2.
Hello. Hi. I'm Kwan. So I've been I'm officially been in the data science team for maybe I would say mix of 1 or 2 years. So the interesting thing, I guess, for my background is I actually transitioned into data science. I did not graduate with a computer science degree. I didn't enter into data science directly. So I've been working for, I guess, 6 or 7 years. And I kind of transitioned from business into product, into analytics, and finally into data science. And now I work in Lazada, and I'm a team lead, and I focus on user growth and supporting the algorithms required to push user growth for Lazada.
Veronica.
Okay. Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm the Deputy Director for the Talent Networking Team here at SGInnovate. The question I always get is, what does talent networking do? So we are about talent. So we connect talents to startups in various capacities, sometimes as mentors, sometimes for internships, for openings, for various opportunities. So that's what we focus on and in terms of building the network and the community here. Okay.
Hi, my name is Bryan. I graduated from Singapore Management University in 2014, so I've got about three years plus of working experience. As far as data science is concerned, I actually started as a product manager in Lazada, and then similar to Kwan, I transitioned over to data science. So the stuff that I work there right now is things like product content, content quality, and that kind of stuff, and also things like product recommendations. So these are the kind of projects that I'm working at right now in Lazada.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Xia Rui, and I need to apologize. I need to read from script because my English is not very good. I am currently year 3 student in NUS, major in applied math, specialization in mathematical modeling and data analytics, also minor in computer science. I just joined Lazada last month with my first internship in Singapore, working with the data science team. Everything just matched up with my imagination. Doing recommendation system with the knowledge I learned from university, like writing SQL, SQL, and sometimes machine learning tools. I am happy with doing a job which my major knowledge would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Zhen, and I'm a student from National University of Singapore, currently clearing my degree in business analytics. So I've interned at Ultimate Software before in their newly established data science department, and I'm currently interning at Micron Technology as a data engineer. Yep. That's about it for me.
Okay. Thank you. So as you can see, we have a different group of people, and that's on purpose. Because on one side, we have students that they are interns right now. We have some newly, or maybe not newly, but people that are not that deep into the data science journey. And then we have more on that management people that hire most of them. And that's on purpose. We wanted to give you kind of different view of the story, because sometimes we only see one part of the story, right? We might apply for a job, we never see how the other side how they look at all those things. So thank you so much for coming, and let's start with our first question for our students. Okay, so what was your strategy to land that first internship? Did you have any strategy in terms of finding the companies or anything in particular you look for? Like, what's your strategy? Yeah.
Okay, so personally for me, I didn't have much background at that point of time. So the only modules that I took were like machine learning related, like really introductory kind of modules. So I had to look out for jobs that were machine learning related. Like I didn't really know of the existence of data science at that point of time. So I was very lucky that my boss took me in that period of time. I didn't really have much experience. But yeah, I think you should try to aim for jobs that the boss would like, people with passion in this particular field. Yeah, I think that's my take on it.
Okay, as for me, firstly, I look through the platform that is provided by my university. So there's a platform called AUS Talent Connect, and I just submit my resume there, very simple. But in AUS Talent Connect, companies tend to reply you rather late. They will process about 1 to 2 months. So I also search for companies that I'm really interested in, like Lazada, and I submit my resume through the official website. And other platforms like LinkedIn and other and after consulting my faculty advisors, I also know platforms like Big Cloud, mainly more on data-related roles. And indeed, although I haven't tried myself, I also know one of my friends. She took some project-based CS module, and some companies just look for her through her blog, recording her learning during that module.
Thank you. So speaking about applying for a job, right? I mean, obviously, when you apply, you have to have a resume, because I mean, most companies want that. Any tips? How do you go about creating a resume? Obviously, you're in a university. Are there services? How did it go?
I think for me, it was more of a cookie cutter experience. Like you just take a cookie cutter template and then you throw the most relevant experiences you have relating to the particular job that you are applying for. And yeah, I think that's about it if you were to look at the particular job scope and try to tailor your experiences, your most relevant experiences to that particular job. Yeah, I think that's what I have done.
Okay, and as for me, AUS, you can book a consultation with your faculty advisor on your resume, and every student has one advisor of the faculty he or she belongs to, and the advisor will improve your resume and give you some useful advices like achievements made in any competition or projects rather than what I have done. So she will also give me some links to find more jobs, and besides school advisors, I also ask advice from my seniors if he or she work in a company I am interested in, and ask of what qualities one particular company pay attention to. For example, one company are rather interested in what coding modules I have taken and what projects I have done in these modules.
Oh, thank you. So now, I guess let's switch a little bit to the people that will look at those resumes, right? So whenever you receive a candidate for internship, you see their resume, or how do you evaluate? Like, what do you do with it? Like, how you get a resume, you're looking for an intern. What are some of the criteria you look for? Yeah.
I think it depends on the level that you're looking at. Mm-hmm. It depends a lot on the level. So I think for entry level, I think it's hard to show tangible work experience because you probably don't have a lot of it. Then I think it's important to see, I look at what they're studying, but actually more importantly, I think this day and age, it's actually quite unique, right? When I graduated, there was not a lot of this self-learning tools available for you, right? Now there's tremendous amount of courses and information and events like these that you can actually attend, right? At least when I try to look for fairly junior people, I see, have you shown strong interest? Not just interest, I want to, but have you strong commitment to actually pick up on the skill sets that would make you useful as a data scientist, right? So example, if I see a Coursera course that you did Andrew Ng's machine learning, and you finish everything, and you have a certificate, that matters, right? Because probably more than just a guy that has, I did computer science, these are the modules I did, Someone that's shown actual proactive action to prove it. I think when you look for more senior profiles, you probably look for actual tangible experiences, and then specific fields related will matter, right? So if you're looking for an NLP guy, you hopefully look for someone with some NLP experience, right? Things like that. But I think for juniors, it's more about proactiveness, and for more senior people, it's about relevant experience and probably more about the interview.
Veronica, yeah, how do you go about that?
Well, I think like what Kwan is saying, a lot depends on the level. Let's just tackle the most entry internship level. If you're looking at that, I think a lot of times you're looking for students who have done something extra outside of the academics, right? Everybody's the same playing field as far as academics are concerned, but what have you done outside of your your fixed curriculum to show that you have that interest, you have taken the step towards that. Yes, it could be online projects, it could be online courses, and then, how do you articulate that? Did you pick up anything on your own? Because fundamentally, beyond just skill sets, we are also looking for that passion and that drive, right? Somebody who's interested and really want to become that. So it doesn't necessarily you have to be in computer science or math. Perhaps, so many courses have that as a background, as a basis. But what is the extra mile you're taking to actually build those skill sets in that area towards data science? Okay.
Bryan, anything to add? Or?
I would say for myself, I'm more of a co-worker. That means I work alongside fellow data scientists. When it comes to maybe the interview or the resume, it's really about, what have you achieved as far as, you wanting to learn data science is concerned. As what they mentioned, there are many courses out there. There's a lot of material. But keeping in mind, right, that data science, after the basics, there are lots of specializations. So do you want to do NLP? Do you want to do recommendations and all that stuff? Keeping in mind also what are the prerequisites for that, statistics, probability, regression, all that stuff. I think those are things that if you not only you learn, but you demonstrate in projects and some deliverables, I think that will really help.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. One thing you have to understand about data science, you will always study. Anybody who's learning data science right now, the field changes so much that unfortunately or fortunately for us, make it a habit. Because, yeah, that will happen. I know at least Kwan and Bryan and myself, we do study a lot outside of our work. So, yeah. Next question. So you see some of the positive things. Are there any red flags that you know? And I mean, it's okay to say no, but anything that will be like, don't put on your resume, or maybe you saw somebody putting something that probably you shouldn't put, or maybe something that just don't add value? Yes, no? No. I mean, it's okay if you don't have an example, that's all, yeah.
Fake information.
Yep.
I think how I can answer is, whatever you put in your resume, be prepared to back it up in your interview. So, if let's say you are doing NLP, for example, then when you go into the when you go into the interview and they ask very, very basic questions on NLP, you should be able to answer them. Or let's say you've done a module in statistics, and if I go into the interview and ask you a basic question on statistics like hypothesis testing, for example, and if you're not able to answer, then that might sound off as, what did you actually put in that resume? I might want to relook at your resume. Just as in any other technology job, it's good to understand what you've written in your resume, because that's usually the first question the interviewer will ask, and then be prepared to answer follow-up questions as far as all the individual line items are there in your resume. As far as that's my experience.
Actually, jokes aside, I mean, linked to both the points actually, there's one thing you definitely do not do, and I for sure is a real fact actually, is that if you're a fresh graduate, I've seen people put like programming languages, right? Java, C++, Python, like MATLAB, right? A laundry list, and then like machine learning techniques, right? SVM, like every single thing, right? Deep neural networks, and a massive laundry list. And like, guys, like, there's no one in the working scene who's worked even 10 years. My boss with a PhD cannot put the list on, like, it's a massive field, right? Like, it was like, don't just dump everything that you've had in class and call that a skill set, right? That is for sure a flag. And especially for people who are finding the first job, there's no way you are like a master in every single thing you put in laundry list, right? It's like, that's what I'm saying. If you put something tangible saying, I finished the machine learning course in Coursera, perfect, right? Yeah. You actually achieve that and you will be able to back it up in the interview, right? But laundry list of so-called skills, for business, CV says it works. I know Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and like, fine, but not the same, you can't do the same with NLP, you can't just dump it in, right? Yeah.
Yep, thank you. So yeah, you landed an interview. So now I have a question for our students, because you went for interviews. How do you prepare? Like, do you do anything, or do you practice questions, like anything special, like maybe your university has services? What do you do? Yeah, how do you prepare for the first internship interview?
So I think what Bryan mentioned was very relatable. Like, we should list things that we can back up. We shouldn't just include everything that we have taken in class. Yeah, then what I tend to do is to recite what I want to convey to my potential interviewers with my friends. Or if they are not present, I could record it myself and see how I fare. And I think something additional would be to practice whiteboard coding with your friends, if it's a very technical role that they are looking for. Yeah.
Sorry?
I also think what Bryan just mentioned is very useful. Like, you should be prepared of what you write in your resume. For example, when I was interviewed in Lazada, I just write in my resume that I joined a competition that is doing prediction for weather prediction. Okay, so the interviewer just asked me about the parameters, and I just said, oh my God, I don't remember the parameters that are very detailed. So I just opened my computer and looked for the parameters. So that's very embarrassing. So just revise all your projects and competitions. So, and beside that, I also revised my very 1,000 and 2,000 level, because that's very many years ago. And during my first unsuccessful interview, I was asked to do a presentation on digit recognition. And when I was thrown a hard question, I just stayed there thinking for a long time. But actually, I need to talk and think in the same time, because I should tell the interview what I was thinking, or the interview will think I did not know how to answer that question. So, but actually I do. I did so in the second interview, and I was successful. Thank you.
I think the additional point would be, if you cannot answer something, don't try to smoke the interviewers, because I think they tend to be more alert than you are. And then I think it happened for me once, where I tried explaining a decision tree, like what's the optimal amount of trees in a random forest. So I answered, and then the guy just questioned me, are you sure you know what you're saying? Then I'm like, I'm not too sure. Yeah, then he said, it would be fine for you to say that you don't know, but just don't try to smoke them. Yeah.
Learn from our mistakes. Yeah, don't. Thank you. So for you guys now, right? So we're at the interview stage. Do you have, how do you conduct your interview? Is it a technical part? Do you have any set questions? Personal, like, what do you look for? Like, what questions do you ask? Yeah. How does it look like?
Well, we have usually multiple stages. I mean, sometimes there's usually a technical assessment. I think if you're going down the tip line, you know how sometimes when you do technical assessment, it can be online and you can do it at home, and then we get the results, right? And if you are doing your research and, on GitHub and everything where you can find the codes, it's okay to be very effective in researching, but at least learn it. But when you come for the interviews, because you might get a similar question again, and you do want to be able to answer that. It's fine because it's a learning environment that you're always in, right? But don't copy and paste and then forget about and not knowing how to answer that. But yeah, so yes, technical assessment is one of the key things, and I think the other that's the bulk of the key aspect. It could be online or on-site coding with a technical specialist like yourselves, right? And sometimes it's more of a behavioral interview as well. Yeah.
So for interviews, something I noticed is that it can be very diverse. But there are many different fields that data science has. So keep in mind, what do you want to focus on? So I think that's number one. Other things that can happen in the interview are whether you're a team player. At the end of the day, as a data science team, as a data science unit, you work as a team, and everybody brings something different onto the table. So it's a question, of how open are you to new ideas. Yes, you study, that's number one, but also, what can you learn at the workplace? So, what's that persona, or how do you portray yourself? How do you carry yourself? That's also very important. So keep in mind that it's not just the hard skills, but also, how do you work with team members, that kind of stuff. That's also very important when it comes to interviews.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can share at least how I look at candidates. I think everyone has seen it online. I mean, there's many ways to describe data science. I think it's actually extremely tough for candidates. It's probably one of the toughest because even if let's say you went for interview for consulting, right? That's a very formulated structure of how the case interview goes. It's almost consistent across firms, and you can study for it, right? Data science, I mean, even the technical side, it can be whiteboard coding, right? It can be take home something for 3 days. There can be take home something for 2 weeks. I've even seen people, right? And I think it is actually very hard to prepare for it. And even what people are, some people like theoretical, some people like to go and say very computer science algorithmic, right? So at least the way I look at it is I view candidates on 3 axes, right? I mean, one is I would say the coding, ability to actually write code and actually understand how code logic works, understand, I mean, general coding. I mean, you can write classes, you understand what a function is, you can do that. 2 is the machine learning statistical concepts, so you do know what a decision tree is versus a linear regression. And then the third part, actually, I think what a lot of people miss is the problem-solving business acumen. I think that's something which I think a lot of people think that you need to be a rock star on the first 2, right? And I mean, some people think that if you're a rock star on those 2, you're done. You're gonna rock it in this job. And some people who actually are quite weak on that are afraid of that. I think understand at least. I think most companies actually look at all 3. Right? And keep in mind in interview that it's not just about showing that you're a rock star in coding and you're a rock star in machine learning, that can you problem solve, right? If the guy asks you about, hey, this project, even let's say, I did a competition on Kaggle, right? Are you the guy that just dumped every single thing in R and just tried every single model that was in a textbook? Or do you go like, this is house pricing, right? Does that make sense? How's your problem solving, your business acumen? Oh, these are houses. The length of the ceiling height doesn't really matter. Do you actually can show that? So I think if you take these 3 axes is actually a good way to look at it. And if you're particularly strong at one, make sure you try to show that you can I would say how put it, like I used to do consulting, so they always say make sure you kind of show a spike in something that you think you're good at, but make sure you hit the minimum bar in all 3. Yeah.
I think just one more thing to add, which is, it's possible when an interview asks you questions, and what they can be trying to do is to identify a gap. So it's very common where you get a question, and then you have a part A and part B which you can answer. And then you go to the part C, and then you're like, I'm not very sure I'll do it, because, it really tests your deep understanding of that particular topic. So, if you're not very sure, just say I do not know, because that is also a way to see, your attitude and and your humility, because that is also one of the things that the interviewers will look for. And if the interviewers think that you're a good candidate, before he onboards you into the company, after the offer, he already has a slew of things that he's prepared for you to learn and to read up before he onboards you with, the domain knowledge and also the project. So that's also very important.
Okay, thank you. I guess, so we kind of are done with some of the basic questions, right, in that term, and soon we're going to open to questions to you if you have them. But any advice on, let's just say people already landed an internship, how to turn it into long-term, any tips, strategies that you would like to give? Because sometimes you have a month, 2 months to to impress? Anything that, I mean, we all have interns or had interns. Anything that you saw that people should do more?
I don't know. I think for interns, I think one thing that really sounds very basic is actually attitude, right? If you're there to, you think it's interesting, it's fun, right? But I mean, whenever I had interns, it's always about your willingness to learn, your willingness to question, and your willingness to actually push to do more than what's requested. Because usually in a company, it's quite busy, right? You do get allocated work, but you don't always get the amount of support you deserve, right? To be fair, right? You do internship, you deserve support, right? Sometimes you don't, right? I mean, do you show that if you don't get the support, do you just sit there and wait for the next touch point, or do you go and say, hey, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to try everything myself, I'm going to ask another guy that's more free in the team, right? Am I going to, maybe the few days that I'll stay a bit late, I'll try to figure out this thing. There's probably documentation you can go and read about the project, show interest. I really believe it's all about the attitude, because I think everything else is kind of, you'll be given a task, you probably try to do it, but attitude really matters. And I think attitude has a big impact on perception plus actually delivery. Because obviously if you work harder, be more proactive, you always deliver better than an intern who's just trying to cruise.
Veronica?
Totally agree with that. I think couldn't sum it up better. Totally about attitude and what you put in to actually convey that you are trying your best, and even when you don't know, right? What do you do to research to close the gap to get the work done? Yeah, I think that's essential.
It's what you can think about is when you are in the job, reflect on what you did in the interview and figure out everything that I wanted as part of the job, during the interview. Is this something that I want? Is this something I've taken out? And then always do that 1+1. Always continue studying. So you have that project, or what is that side project that you are very passionate about, because you've got people who are professionals who are there to be more than happy. They're more than willing to help you.
I think can I add on? Because we typically try to tag a mentor to an intern, and I think having that communication is also very important. Always checking in to see how am I progressing. Am I on the right track? Is there something else I can research on, read on to get things better? Yeah. So having those onward conversations is proactive and beneficial. Yeah.
I wouldn't frame it also another way, is that actually doing an internship, right, it's actually extremely critical that you try to deliver something, not just for the company, but for yourself. Because I put it this way, if I'm trying to hire a graduate, right, and he's done 2 internships, right, and I ask him, hey, what do you do at this company, right? And he goes like, yeah, the guy didn't really show me stuff, so I just did some coding, I don't know what I delivered. It looks really bad. Right. It actually it's not. I would say it's not just like you do a bit better at performance. Like if you did an internship and you just cruised, and when you actually finally meet like more interviews, people ask you what did you do in an internship. It's a very bad portrayal on your kind of overall attitude towards it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So work hard in your internship.
Yep. So I have a different question, because we talk about students, right? But what about professionals that want to move to data science? Because obviously it's a young field, right? So we might have some analysts, statisticians. Any advice that you have for them? What to do, how to do it? You see people trying to transition, yeah?
I mean, I can speak a lot about this because I transitioned my career from that. I think the first thing to think about is I think the 3 buckets I talked about. I think when you want to transition, the first thing you have to say is, where do I stand on these 3, right? Just like a fresh graduate, right? And at least the angle I approached it was that I think I'm pretty strong. I started from a more business kind of consulting kind of background, and I said, okay, I think I'm fairly good at problem solving, I hope, right? And I think that's where I think I can stand out, right? But clearly, I have massive gaps on coding and massive gaps on machine learning, right? And like I said, you need to have a spike and you need to have minimum standards on all. And then what I tried to do is that it actually took me a long time. It took me more than 2 years to transition from a business-centric role into data science, right? So I spent the next year by requesting to transfer to a different department and to lead a different initiative, which was analytics, right? So it gave me an opportunity to learn about more of the machine learning side, more about data, more about, and started to code more and get that Then I moved into product development, right, which was also much more on the coding side and try to fill up the gaps. And I think, back to your point, I think if you want to transition a career, the reality is you will need to do a lot of studying on your own, right? There's no getting around it. It's like, even though you can try to change departments, which I guess I did, you do need to spend the time to do online courses. Go through data sets, like practice, do more online courses, practice, and at least when you want to transition, show that you've hit the minimum bar required on at least what you're missing.
Okay, for transitioning, I think it's obviously you start with your programming languages and getting yourself up somewhere, right? Depending on where you're coming from, I think you have the conventional data analyst type role versus a completely non-technical role. So the starting point is quite extreme, quite different. So for a non-technical role, obviously you have to get started to the programming side of things, the Python, the R, and really build up on the statistical, courses in the background. Of course, the transition from data analytics is a lot faster, right? And just moving into machine learning, maybe a few boot camps or courses will help. But I think getting some support as well is useful as you start on this journey, because it's tough if you're the only one who's trying to do this, and it does take a lot of effort, because if this is beyond your current job and you're doing this on your own in the evenings, and you need that community and that support, and getting into an AI meetup group will definitely help you along the way as you see other people journeying with you. So the community does support a lot. Yeah.
I think what's important is also, I agree with what they say. At the same time, think about, what's that roadmap that you want to have when it comes to learning. So the roadmap can contain courses, it might contain textbooks, it might contain topics, it might even be just a collection of data science related articles that's around, because there are many articles out there where they've already given you the code. So all you need to do is just to implement. I think there's no harm with starting to copy someone else's code, running it on and see if the results work. And then from there, moving forward to learning the more deep capabilities or the deep competencies. So honestly, there's a lot of resources and there are many ways to do it. Having a mentor is also very important. I think so again, back to networking, going to meetups, talking to people who are in the field within your company or within your organization, or even going back to universities. These are all the different ways in which you're able to get your feet wet into all these different fields. So for myself, I transitioned from a product manager over to data science. That was about 2 years ago. And what I did was that I showed that there was the knowledge of the domain knowledge, which is what Lazada, what e-commerce is, what Lazada is, that kind of stuff. And then from there, demonstrate that you have interest in data science with projects or with talking to people, demonstrating that you know the topic, and then eventually moving over to a proper data science role.
At one point, one interesting point I think was that I know it sounds very painful, and it was very painful for me to transition, but I would want to say, to encourage people, so that if you actually transition from a separate kind of role into data science, if you do transition, yes, you probably would not be as good a coder than a rock star that came from NUS who did computer science, right? But you actually bring a fairly interesting skill set, right? So for example, right, Bryan was a product manager, right? So his ability to understand how products work, how that interacts with business, how that impacts e-commerce, right? Having actually an interesting domain knowledge, and also, for example, even you worked in business, right? You worked in business, but bringing something different actually gives you an advantage versus someone that just, who just did a PhD, who did studied computer science, did a master's in computer science, did a PhD in machine learning, right? The fact that you have something unique actually can play in your advantage and makes you an interesting candidate, and also makes you quite unique, right? So don't give up if you want to transition. It's a long journey, but you can actually carry along what you have in a unique kind of way.
So I had an interesting weekend in London, and we actually met up with maybe a group of 40, 50 data scientists. Yeah, and it was interesting because they were all from different domains, different backgrounds, and experts in their various areas who have made a transition into this new career. Obviously, they had to put in a lot of effort to study and to learn the new programming languages. For some of them are from math, some of them are from sciences. I met one which is from with a history background. Right, but so they have their areas of expertise, different domains and expertise, and they actually spent a fair bit of time learning the machine languages, and it was an interesting meetup because they were like a small community, and they supported each other along the way. What value adds now is that when they come in, when they provide that business support to whether it's a consulting project or whether it's an internal project, they bring in a very different perspective from a pure mathematician, for instance. Yeah, because they have that context, they have the understanding of a different functions, for instance. Yeah, so it is a very unique view.
Thank you. That's it in terms of set questions. So now, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, raise your hand. I can pass you the microphone. Sorry, yeah.
Hi, thanks for answering your questions. My question's for the gentleman then. What's data engineering like? Are you still doing statistical analysis, or are you working mostly with Spark and Hadoop and those kinds of things?
So in Micron, what they are dealing with is a lot of big data. So they tend to use more of the big data databases like Hive, HBase, and Hadoop. Yeah, we do use Spark. I was exploring more of PySpark because I had no background in Scala. So I had to kind of learn it from scratch as well. And then what I have been doing there is writing simple scripts for them to automate the drawing of the extraction of data, and then just transform it to the particular format that they want, and I throw it back to the database, depending on whether they want it on Hive or HBase. Yeah, Hive is like a SQL kind of database, and HBase is more of a NoSQL database. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Hi, my question is for, my question is for mainly Kwan and Veronica. So what I want to ask is that you all talk about the constant learning. So what actually are the most recommended online courses right now for data science? On the online right now, like let's say right now I open to Google and what are the courses that are best? You mentioned like Coursera. Are there any others? And especially, are there any free ones?
The Google Machine Learning is very popular and very highly recommended.
Sorry?
The Google Machine Learning course is very
The one with TensorFlow?
Yeah, very highly recommended, I think. Yeah. Any other technical one?
I don't know. Actually, depends on what you want to learn. So I have one more niche one, which I felt was very. I think two of them which really helped actually conceptually. So I didn't come from a computing background or a so-called statistical background. Two courses which I did would really help me understand things, not just in terms of this is what SVM is, but SVM, this is what logistic regression is. I actually understand theoretically and also intuitively what things were. The more common one is the Andrew Ng's Coursera course. So that one I suggest don't do the exercises in Octave, which is the open source version of MATLAB, which is completely arcane. But there's actually a GitLab repository of a guy who did everything in Python. Right? So just take the theoretical side of it and then do that. And I think actually it's free to watch the videos. If not, I do not recommend this, but there are people who have put the videos on YouTube. You just need to search them a bit.
So you can audit Coursera courses, not all of them.
Yeah, correct. You don't have to pay for
some of them, so you don't have access to. You can have access to homeworks. You cannot submit them.
Correct. But the videos are actually all free, right? So and then there's actually the exercises. They're actually GitHub repositories where it's not privacy. It's like someone actually redid all the exercises in Python and posted it in a GitHub repository. So I think that's a very good. And I think Andrew Ng is a very good way of explaining things intuitively, so that something that sounds like extremely complicated, he will be able to explain it in a more good way, but he also brings in enough mathematical concepts so that you actually understand how it works, right? Second one that I think not many people actually know about, which I liked a lot, is it's called Introduction to Statistical Learning. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. It's actually a book. It's actually a book that's published by Stanford professors on statistics. It takes a much more statistical approach to all the problems, but it's actually quite simple. And the book is one, you can buy it on Amazon for $60, or you can go to his website and actually lets you download it for free. He just sells it through, like, for academic publications. And there's actually an entire video series for free online on YouTube. So actually apparently they ran the courses in Stanford every year, and someone recorded it, and it's actually available online. So you can actually follow the text, watch the video, and follow the programming exercises in R. And again on that one, I do not recommend you follow all the R exercises because it's also using, like, every chapter uses its own packages, which is not actually useful. You should just do everything in Carrot. But again, there is someone who has redone all the exercises in a more modern R packages, right? So I think I like these two not because they were hardcore. They're actually very little on the coding side, but it's a kind where, like, if you hit theoretical interviews where you guys are like, why is boosting better than random forest, right? Like, you actually understand it intuitively why it's the case. Like, not even, no numbers, nothing, right? You can actually intuitively tell you why it feels. I think these are the two courses I really recommend as the base. And then the rest about Spark, all that kind of stuff. I mean, once you get there, I'm sure you can figure it out. Yeah.
Today is Spark, tomorrow is going to be something else. So really, it's a tool.
If I could add on, I don't know what kind of profiles everyone is at, but if you have, there are boot camps out there for conversion type. So if you really don't have that kind of a technical background and you really want to try it out and get somewhere, you can look for conversion, which are actually highly, there's a lot of government funding for it. I think it's funded up to like 90%. So and they will even try to place you in a job after that. So that's one to look into if you're looking to convert from a non-technical data science kind of area. There are also, I should kind of market our training courses since I have the opportunity. No, so we do run training courses as well for those who are interested in venturing into machine learning and data deep learning, for instance. Yeah, so we do have that. You can check out our websites. It does come on regularly. We have various partners that we put on. Aside from that, I think the other place that you can also look into, which is free, our AI Saturdays as well, if you want to get into the community. They do take the research papers, they do run through, and they do talk about the various concepts. So that's a good place to start to connect, to build that community. You might find a mentor in there that can kind of point you in a better direction, because there's a lot more people with different, at different stages of their journey, right? Yeah, and yeah, you can learn from other people there.
Yep. Thank you.
Hello everyone. We just discussed regarding the career transition. So even I have switched my career from the automation testing to the data science. I have done some online course in the data science as well. And I have solved a couple of the projects in the Kaggle as well. But when it comes to the resume, CV and all, people usually looking for the people having the experience in the same field. For the career transition people, we are not getting the much opportunities. So how to handle this kind of scenarios? Anyone can answer?
Okay. In the transition area, I think it's important to show what you're able to do. So if you have, opportunities, of course, if you join hackathons and datathons, that will give you opportunities to showcase your own talents. Outside of that, of course, is, I don't know, I mean, maybe from since you're moving into that area, maybe trying some out, putting some more activities into GitHubs and type profiles would help increase visibility, because those are things that you're actively doing on your own that is not within your current job scope. But if you're able to show what you have been doing, and even doing projects on your own, if you manage to do internally, I don't know whether you can get some data, what you have been able to do, highlight those projects that you are doing on your own. Those would help. Yeah. Right.
Thank you. I guess my question's for Kwan, but for Andrew Ng has also been releasing a free ebook on machine learning. It's called Machine Learning Yearning. and it's pretty easy to find on the internet. You can download a couple chapters at a time. I guess my question is, what was the tipping point when you went from being kind of an individual contributor to a manager, and what were some of the challenges that you had there?
I think it was quite funny actually. I'll be honest. I transitioned from the other way. I was actually a business lead. I had 40 people on my team in the business BU, and then I was a head of product development for one of Lazada's verticals, and I had like a 15, 18-man team. So I think I actually transitioned from the other way. I was more of a manager who actually transitioned now to a person that actually contributes code. Not a lot, some, but I actually transitioned from the other route, I think. Hypothetically, to answer your question, I would actually, again, I did not follow this path, to be frank, but I do believe the transition is when you start getting better at the problem-solving part. Right? I think like if you're coming from a more technical background and say, I'm a very strong individual contributor, I always rock my projects, I code everything up, everything works perfectly, right? If you want to transition into a more team lead role, I think you really need to index on the business acumen and the the kind of problem solving and engagement with business. I think it depends on the size of companies you work at, but I guess from Lazada, I guess it's transitioning from a startup to a corporate. I mean, I think it's in between, where ability to share your ideas, structure projects, be a project manager, and also to be able to manage different stakeholders, I think the value add. So I guess maybe I'm saying problem solving and value add, and being able to be not just a guy that can deliver code and algorithms, but a guy where the business can say, hey, this is my problem, and not have to tell you how to do it. And you're able to lead the overall direction and craft something that people use. I think one thing that does happen is when you have only technical kind of skill sets, you end up delivering something very cool technically, but business goes like not really what fits into the product or the business requirements. Yeah, so theory craft. Yeah.
Hi, Kwan, Veronica and Bryan. Actually, I have two questions for your just quite curious, is there any particular phrase and words that will appear on the resume that will catch your attentions if you like to invite the persons for interviews? And second thing is, if the score, certifications from the data came, or maybe the Puah side, or if I have a Kaggle score, will actually like to attract your attention to invite me for the interview.
Sorry, what was the second question?
I mean, if I have any like data came, the certifications from online courses like Coursera that you mentioned just now, and there is another website called DataCam, and also another is called Puah site as well. Yeah, so if we have those certifications, we'll actually like to catch your attention to invite the candidate for interviews. Or maybe if I have the Kaggle, Kaggle, that score, we'll like have a better chance for that.
I think first question, no. Honestly, I don't know if any quotes or if a phrase or anything like that. For two, I think yes. I think yes, but also back to Bryan mentioned, like yes. I think yes. Okay, yes for sure. If you put a lot of cool like camps and like courses you've done, for sure it adds value. But make sure you follow up Bryan said. Like make sure you show up, and if I ask you about the camp, you can say something about it. Or like if you say I'm Kaggle top 20 in the house pricing prediction, right? And if you come to the interview and he goes like, so how do you do it? And he goes like, make sure you follow up. But for sure it catches eye. I also think that, I don't know, maybe from what we've seen, might not be a representation of the market, is that there isn't actually that much supply. I mean, like you'd be surprised how many data scientists there are out there and especially Singapore now. If I just speak to the people in various companies, right, there is for sure strong demand, right, which doesn't always meet supply. So I think my point is like, I think people are also more willing to pick up attractive, like interesting CVs, not necessarily super strong, and actually interview them, more than maybe some industry which is very mature, that you have a lot of supply and people are just screening by university name kind of thing. I think generally people are more flexible to what your CV has.
I think, so there's this little trick that I've noticed when it comes to writing CVs, that I've seen when PhD candidates or PhD graduates apply, which is they've got published papers, right? So what you can also do is you can think about what is your portfolio when it comes to having that data science experience. So it can be something like I've done this project. These are the techniques I use, these are the deliverables. Link it up to a GitHub page where you have the README, and then you just have like 1 or 2 lines on what this is about. So when you go, so make it user-friendly. When you go into the project, it's not just a bunch of code, but showing, okay, this is like a Jupyter notebook, for example. You've got the graphs, you've got the results, you've got this, you've got the data set, and it's well curated. That can be something. Of course, it's not as good as a PhD published paper, but it shows that you've demonstrated something, you've learned something, and you've delivered something on your own time. So that helps to build that credibility. Put that GitHub URL onto your resume. Write essays about your journey and that kind of stuff. If you're able to diary that, I think that's quite important also. It shows that you are taking active steps towards getting that qualifications and also getting that competencies.
Maybe a quick tip, because you don't always know who is reading your CV. So when you are writing your CV, as much as possible, do like what Bryan says. Write it as in response to the role. How do you show relevance? You can have a very long CV with nothing that is relevant to the role, and that would mean nothing for the person who's recruiting you. And the person who is recruiting you may not always be a technical person. So you need to cater a balance between the technicality as well as the HR person who might be helping to support and recruit that role. Yeah, so without that balance, sometimes you might end up in a very long pile at the bottom, because these are quite interesting roles. Despite not having enough data scientists out there are applicants who may not be as qualified as well. Yeah, so you do want to get yourself noticed. So yeah, that's a quick tip.
First, just a quick follow-up question to what was discussed before, to you, Kwan. You said that coding is one of the 3 bases that should be covered well. Just to quickly confirm, if there are, because we also said that you just have a limited amount of time, limited amount of capacity in your brain to sort of have all the knowledge covered. If there are 2 languages that you would focus on to be well equipped in, would that be like Python and R, for example, or would there be a different language that you would?
Actually, I would say Python and R is quite interchangeable, probably. I would say it does the same thing. I mean, the packages are all kind of, use pandas, you use dplyr, the same shit. I think they're also actually converging, right? They're kind of converging the same. I think, I actually don't think you need even 2, I'll be honest, right? It depends on what level you're looking at, right? I think, I can put it this way, if you're looking for more entry-level general data science, I would say Python or R. I would kind of actually lean towards Python nowadays. And it's more tangible, more pragmatic actually, because R is more a historically statistical language with a lot of packages, but Python is actually semi-production ready. Example, if you write PySpark, right, you can actually write you can write PySpark, push it to production in a company, and it will actually work fine. You can write TensorFlow code in Python, it will work fine. R, the support is always like third-class citizen. R Spark is like, I don't know, four versions down the line. Like, I would say I would probably err towards Python. And I say it depends if you're looking for a job maybe at an e-commerce company, to be honest. They do look for more production-ready languages. And that I would say would be something like Java, something like C++, something like that. But I don't think that's a requirement. I don't think that's a requirement for most jobs. But of course, the more you know, the better. But I would say not really a fear, because learn one well. And I think I would put my bet on Python as a first language.
What about SQL?
Oh, yes, yes, like SQL. SQL is actually, yeah. I guess SQL, yeah. SQL and Python, yeah. Shit. Yes, okay. No, and also actually to answer the question on why, it sounds very funny, but actually SQL is actually, it's a language that every single new technology always has a translator. So I don't know, like Hive. Hive is a SQL engine. It's got a slightly different syntax, but they have a SQL engine, right? In R, you can actually write SQL code, right? In every new technology, in BigQuery, in Google Cloud, you write SQL. in every single new wave, I would say highly efficient, parallelized, distributed system thing, they always have a SQL interface. So that's actually something that will 100% be useful everywhere. Thank you, Michal. That's actually good advice.
Yeah, very interesting that the SQL came up because, well, I heard the lady before from the NUS also mentioning SQL and SQR, structured query language, reporting language. And this is a language that's maybe 30, 40 years old or so already. I didn't imagine it being used so much then still, being so relevant nowadays, but apparently it is. Could I maybe ask one more question? Thank you so much. The question will be to Veronica, and if that's allowed also to the moderator actually, to Michal. We just said that currently maybe demand might be surpassing or exceeding the supply in this area because it's a new area, it's growing, companies are jumping onto it. On the other hand, also universities are catching on. There's a lot of interest from the people. If you look here, it's full. People look into converting into this area or just studying this area. So right now, yes, demand surpasses supply, but would you have any insights into or a feeling about how this would be like 3-4 years from now when, like most of us, if we want to convert to this area, we'll be ready to actually get really started hands-on in this area? Would we still, because the demand has increased even further, would we still have a good chance to make it there, or is it just so much supply that there's no chance?
Excuse me. Based on my very unscientific opinion, I think there is a pent-up demand. There's a lot of interest now in AI and data science. The general economy is heading that direction, but a lot of organizations are not there yet, right? So there is opportunities. You have the tech companies who are leading the charge, but that's one part of it. So if you are asking me 3 to 4 years down the road, yeah, there's definitely still going to be that demand. Yeah.
I totally agree. You would be surprised how many companies don't have basic database capabilities. They run on CSVs. And that will change. Sorry. Yeah, so SQL, definitely. In terms of tools, when I came to Singapore 3 years ago, neural networks were just a kind of cute thing to do. Now we're deploying them. You're going to see that in a year or two. There's going to be a new shiny object that's going to be cute. 3-4 years down the road, it will evolve. And that's why one of the big things that hopefully you're going to take from here is you have to be a constant learner. You're going to have to up your skills, learn new things, and unfortunately or fortunately, that's the name of the game. So data science will be here. In what shape or form? I don't think, we might ask maybe Google. They're going to, Google, Facebook, they're going to they're going to write the future. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. My question is an open question, but if you look at it from an entrepreneur's side for data science, what are the opportunities there that that are available? Because now you already have established companies that are looking at it. You have tech companies that are already leading the charge, and the gap is sort of already filled up. But if you want to enter into the industry and be the next, what is the skill or gap do you think that can still be filled?
Do you mean a data science startup?
Yeah, something like that.
Let's say you're saying if I wanted to create a data science startup, you mean?
Yeah, so promising fields or thoughts.
Actually, I don't know about data science startups. I don't know. I would say maybe I'll put it this way. I think maybe following on what was said just now. I think if I look at actually a lot of companies are still in a very early stage, right? And okay, let me try to answer your question directly. I actually don't know what entrepreneur stuff is, but and to be fair, there's not a lot of precedent in the region, right? I think there's a lot of precedent in the States, in Silicon Valley, and To Europe, to a certain extent, less. But there are a lot of precedents in the States where you start up with a data science startup. I mean, the most famous one is DeepMind, right? They a bunch of PhD guys, 4 or 5 guys, created the most insane algorithm, got bought for a few $1 billion, right? So maybe, directly to the point, maybe Singapore needs this, right? Maybe need someone to come out and craft and say, hey, I want to do data science, but I'm going to do a startup. I'm not going to join a big company. I want to try to solve a niche problem that I think no one is solving and attack that. That could be interesting, but I have no idea whether that's...
Sorry, just extension. Like, do you think like it would be more like a larger outsourcing platform? It's the way we used to like outsource calls now, but then you have like outsourcing the data science. Like,
I think for sure. Actually, I think for sure, and I think for sure there's opportunity to do that. But I think it's also complicated. I think the problem in outsourcing is I think data security is one, and I also think it's because of development of something else, the maturity of the platforms, right? So also to be frank, right, before this, a data scientist probably had to code everything from scratch, right? You had a Python notebook, right? You installed pandas, right? You set up your own DB, right? Now, there are mature machine learning cloud platforms, right? Google Cloud Platform, right? For example, you can pretty much go there, click a few buttons, you get your thing, you get your BigQuery screen, you write some queries, you get data, and then you push through. Like, they're more mature platforms. So again, this is all theory craft. I think that companies will probably find it less hard to go in-house. Last time, if you wanted to go in-house, you had to go to Oracle or to go Cloudera, get a massive stack, pay a few $1 million. I think you don't have to anymore. You could get a cloud, you could go to Databricks, get their full-fledged machine learning end-to-end pipeline. You could go Cloudera, they have a cheaper version now. There's a Google Cloud Platform. I think that it's not so easy to outsource yet, but it's very theoretical. No experience in this.
I think so. As far as your question is concerned, there are several ways to look at it. First is let's see what the research is doing. So you've got a lot of paper libraries out there. NIPS is one of them. Where they look at what the bleeding edge techniques when it comes to data science. The biggest caveat when it comes to that is these papers are very, very difficult to read. You need like 4 years of bachelor's and then 2 years of master's and 2-3 years of PhD, and then you need to be in the field to be able to understand that. That kind of stuff is, I would say, as far as the financial world is concerned, is as difficult as the Black-Scholes stuff, which is the options pricing stuff. So there is, but the question is, how do you? So you've got the research stuff. How do you bring that into commercial? So that's when you have all the startups that are coming in. So I think there's still a lot of room there. As far as data science as a service, what's important is you need to see data science as part of the whole ecosystem. So you've got data security, ethics, and all that kind of stuff. The first thing that I think everybody comes into everybody's mind when it comes to data privacy is the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? That just happened very recently. So with that, user data, there's going to be a lot more companies that want to close all these data providers or data provisioning connections or APIs, for example. So that will make data as a service platforms a lot harder. As far as I think the way to go, as far as what I see, is these capabilities will all be in-house. So you'll be hiring a data scientist, from entry level all the way up to PhDs or experienced guys, and then as a team, you'll be building all these solutions. That's at least how I see it going.
Okay. I do come from a very different perspective. I would say that for the first question, what kind of startups for AI, right? If that's the question, I think it has to start with a problem statement first, right? You can have the best technology and the best research. If it doesn't solve a problem, nobody cares. Nobody cares, yeah. So start with the right problem. I mean, we've seen really interesting AI startups in SGInnovate. So one of the latest one that we've seen is they send an AI machine down into the sewers to measure the old land, the whole infrastructure underground in like parts of Europe where it's very, very old, right? It's ancient. And instead of sending the man team down, and it saves a lot of manpower and efficiency. That kind of application. In Singapore, sometimes we're a bit narrow because the application-wise, everything is very efficient and automated, you wonder what kind of AI do you want to apply? But what kind of problems do you want to solve? So you need to find the problem first. Otherwise, your AI would be, pointless. Yeah. So from a second perspective, whether AI can be outsourced, there are actually AI consultancies out there, right? Depending on the scale of the organization. Take one instance that I heard of. I came into just this last weekend when I was meeting some of the data scientists. So they did a project for the UK Home Office, and they released a code, an algorithm where they actually were able to identify propaganda, like terrorism propaganda versus news reports, so that you can actually identify what might be potential sources of terrorists. So the Home Office outsourced that to them. You see, so interesting projects are out there, and not every organization has the capability at this juncture to be able to build their own internal team of AI or have their whole team of data scientists. Sometimes it starts with getting one or two projects with a consultancy first to understand how it works. And then from there, how then do they transform, map out their own transformation? We've got many corporates coming to us and talking with us. They say, what do we do? How do we move on from there? Because they are not a tech company to start with, right? And that's part of what the road plan looks like for corporates out there. And they have to embrace, they will be embracing AI. At least that's my forecast, right? Okay, yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities, I think, at least in this area.
All right, thank you so much for your answers. Yeah.
Hi. So this is probably a question for the three of you, and then because I think we noticed that, say, Google and Microsoft, they are coming out with their own like machine learning self-service tools and platforms. So I came across like someone's opinion who thinks that in the future, it might be cheaper for companies to train their in-house like business like analysts or operations guys to pick up like data science or to use these tools to help the analytics rather than to hire a data scientist from outside and having to train him in the business side of things. What do you feel that, is this true, or do you feel that the converse is more accurate in the future?
I like that perspective. I think this for sure actually is happening. I can be honest, it's happening, right? It's happening. But I think there's a different way to look at it. I think that we can split it through two questions, right? Will data scientists of the future write code or not? That's the bigger question you can ask. But I think like the scenario you laid out is not possible. Like let's say I gave you a tool, which actually is you're kind of using. It's a tool where you can just drag and drop models. Random forest, logistic regression. You want one hot coding, you pull it here, you drag and drop, you link everything up, right? Those tools are actually available out there, right? But then when you run the model, what happens, right? Is the business analyst guy going to be able to understand that, results are crap, what do I do? He doesn't know what random forest does. He has no idea what one hot encoding does, and there's like 60 different algorithms, right? Which one does he pull? So I think that it's kind of stretching to say that data scientist jobs just be replaced by business analytics guys. I think it's more of, I do see that the data science people probably code less and less. Okay, and also to make sure, I think the data science people who are moving things into application, right? Like you work in a bank, you work in a Deloitte doing consulting, like where you want to solve a problem with existing algorithms. Yes, I do actually think that as long when it goes on, you probably code less, but you still be a data scientist. You still need to understand how it works. And then there's also the question about pushing to production, right? Because you don't drag and drop to move a model to production, right? So I think that's my perspective. I think like yes, but for sure the skill sets will not be replaced by just a dude who knows how to do Excel. Right? So I think don't worry about that. And there is a question mark about how tangible is it learn coding, but I would say it will not be quick. Yeah.
I think what's important is, at the end of the day, data scientists are still primarily statisticians with a bunch of technological tools. So, right now, we are able to run a lot of models using just one library, 1 or 2 lines of code, yes. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that that's just one of the many things that a data scientist has to do. Most of the time, data scientists, they clean data. And then, when you look at missing data, for example, what do you put inside? Do you put in a 0 or 1? Do you put in an average? Do you put in an average within a category? These are questions that, you have to answer, and these are questions that you have to be able to give an answer with regards to the business objectives of it. When it comes to, let's say, regression, for example, everybody knows how to run a model, but then what happens if you have 2 variables in your model that are correlated? How does that affect things like your error term? How does that affect things like your bias and your variance? These are questions that, I've seen in interviews. These are questions that I've been asked during interviews. So, at the end of the day, there are all these tools that are out there, but just like a regular toolbox, if I give you a hammer and a saw and a screwdriver, are you able to build a good chair out of it? Are you able to build a good table out of it? How do you make, whatever there is fit in a room, for example, or in a house, for example? So the tools are out there, yes. The tools are easier to use, yes. But at the end of the day, whatever you build, whatever pipeline that you build, does it fit the business? Does it fit the business needs? And that also still requires a lot of fundamental learning. And that's why people go back to hypothesis testing. People go back to basic statistics, basic probability, in order to validate whatever models that they have. So whatever tools that are out there, are they going to help? Yes. But do you still need the fundamentals? I think definitely. So there are still a lot of opportunities for pure data scientists in the future, next few years.
Okay, let's have 2 more questions, okay? And yeah.
Hi. I would like to know, in your opinion, how valuable would a skill set like familiarity with AWS and other cloud solutions, how useful would it be to have in comparison to, say, something like SQL or Python knowledge? And do you see that changing in the future?
I can give a quick answer. I think depends on what you're aiming for. Directly answer your question, no. If your comparison is AWS DevOps versus Python and SQL, for sure no. But maybe if that is where you come from, start the data engineering route, right? Go towards data engineering to support data scientists, and you can transition, right? And I think, like I said, we're not nowhere near where you can automate everything. The linkages between data engineering and data science is actually extremely close, especially for companies who push things to production.
I would say try and work backwards, which means work backwards from the JD. Look at what they're looking for. For all you might be very strong at AWS, cloud, and EC2 and all that stuff. But if the company is running on Windows Azure, Microsoft Azure, then you might need to rethink how you want to pitch yourself to the company. So that's at least my take.
I heard Grab's big on AWS.
Thanks, guys, for tonight. It's been really good to get some insights from data science. A question: do you feel as though data science has an influential voice, at management meetings? Are they driving outcomes, or are they more, getting work from the business, getting some work scripts, and then coming back with a presentation? Or do you say, actually, yeah, we've done this, but we think we've found something really interesting on this side, and we want to push that to management and try and get a business outcome there? Do you feel as though data science is getting a strong voice at the table?
Let me answer answer from our experience. I think it's been exactly where you think it came from to halfway in between. So before this, data scientists were overpaid people who just did models that never went to production and no one used, and came up with stuff that no one understood in presentations. And it's been a journey to convince business of the value, right? And I think also speaking from Lazada's perspective, right? As everyone knows, we got acquired by Alibaba, and Alibaba comes from the other spectrum, right? Where literally the data science and the data and the technical teams drive substantial amount of the direction in product and innovation. Right? I mean, they're much more like a tech company than Lazada was. I mean, you probably know the history. Lazada came from more pure business side. So I think it's a whole spectrum, and I think that depends on the company's background of the founders and people and things like. I'm sure if you join someone like Google, it'll be very product and tech driven, and I think Lazada's in between now. And maybe some, like if you join UOB, for example, I'm sure they have a data science team. It's probably a bit in between. So I think it's a journey and a challenge for all teams to drive more of the direction. Yeah.
Guys, this is all the time we have for today. If you have any other, I know, but if you have any other questions and direct, maybe you can approach our panelists directly. Okay, but yes, thank you so much for your knowledge, for sharing with us. Thank you, guys. Thank you, our host, SGInnovate, for having us here. Is there any requests, anything to do before we leave, or we're all good? We're all good.
I will say something before we leave. Yes. Okay, I've got. Can we go back to the other one? Right, just in case, since everyone here is interested in AI and data science, we do have. Do we have the other slide? It will come back. Okay, so we do have a program called Summation, which is offers AI internships, apprenticeships with startup companies. So if anyone is interested, so we have two sides. For organizations who are interested, they could submit their projects to us. Okay, and then for individual students who are interested, they could also apply. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more, just check out our website. Okay, right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming.